the question of what is it, that is the question. And for me, it's like, what is the source of crop circles? Who makes the crop circles? Who helps you when you're in a city and you're lost and suddenly somebody comes up to you and they at that moment, they give you the directions to exactly where you need to be. Or I'm doing some research and I'm really stuck on a certain question. And then someone will come up to me and say, hey, have you read this book? And it's exactly the subject and it has exactly the answer that I was looking for. And I think that Scalar Heart Connection works on the principle of synchronicity. And that opens up the whole big question of who is listening to me ask the question about the subject that I'm trying to find that brings the book to me. Who heard me ask the question and is supplying the answer? Who is that or what is that? And personally, I believe that is, well, we could call it our higher self. Some people think of it as unlimited intelligence or universal intelligence. Physicists, quantum physics, are now saying that that whole quantum field is aware of our thoughts. We're able to interact with space and time. Looking at research by HeartMath with Roland McCready and Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, they've shown how the heart actually sends more information to the brain than the brain is sending to the heart. And in fact, the heart is knowing and responding to events in the future. So the event hasn't even happened yet, but the heart is already starting to react to it. Just like, how do elephants know when a tsunami's coming? How do birds know when, before an earthquake arrives? There's this innate knowing that I believe that we all are connected to, and it's infinitely smart. Well, I looked at that same research. They're calling it presentiment, where the heart is reacting physically to an event, like I said, that hasn't happened yet. And it's coming from a monitor. They would show test subjects an image on a computer screen that was like a horrible image, or they might show a very pleasant image. And the heart was responding to the image that was coming up on the next screen before it had come up, within seconds before it came up. And so I said to myself, if the heart knows what is coming up or about to come up on a computer screen, why couldn't I ask the heart to show me what computer screen I needed in terms of had the answer to a question that was bothering me? So I'm troubled by something, I need help. I can wait for synchronicity. I can wait for a bird to fly through my window or something. Or could I put the answer on a card and tape it to the back of 10 monitors? And could I then ask my heart to show me a number, like picking a card, 1 through 10? Have you ever had someone say, here, pick a card, and there's you interact with it in some intuitive way that says, well, that's my card. You just know that's your card. So if I ask someone to pick a number 1 through 10, and one of those numbers has the answer that they're looking for, it never fails. They always know that it's number 6 or it's number 7. They know the number. And sure enough, when you turn over the card related to number 7, let's say, the statement is so right on to what the question was that you go, wow, that you know that you've tapped into some higher intelligence, that heart innate intelligence. And it's a game changer, because suddenly you realize you can have a conversation with the wisdom of the universe. So what I found is that when people have an issue, well, first of all, why do we have issues? Why do we even have problems? And I feel like we have problems because we are in this stage of life that is about helping us to grow and to evolve. And so I think that problems, hardships, the traumas that we have in life are there to teach us and to help us. So you have the problem comes up, and we're challenged through that problem, and the challenge leads us to the action. I call these archetypal patterns. It's like the same issue that I have, everybody else has had them. I'm not unique in my problem. And it's almost like you can find these archetypal patterns that come to us in the issue, and then it's the obstacle or the challenge that helps us grow. And then finally, what is the action that we need to take? And usually what happens is we have a problem and we react from our mind belief about it, which is our conditioned beliefs, our cultural conditioning, our parental conditioning. And so we just react from that. And that usually, at least it's been my experience, it always makes it worse when I just react from how I saw my parents respond to a certain thing. And I respond like that, and I always get in trouble. But if I can just take a moment and tap into my heart and say, okay, heart, what would be a more compassionate response instead of a reaction? And that is always a completely different answer, and it always has a completely different outcome. What happens, I have found that when you bring the habit to consciousness, and your mind now has been called out, it's been called on the carpet, and the mind goes, yeah, I do that. And the shorter version gives you what the mind is thinking and reacting to. It tells you what is the heart response. Then it has a frequency that sort of matches to that response. And that's part of what helps with that shift to make it more lasting and changing. The longer version asks a couple other questions. And the other question is, where did this belief come from? Was it from mom? Was it from dad? Was it the school principal? Or is it societal collective consciousness? Or sometimes it can be genetic. It can be ancestral. It's always a fun thing to do to find out that this habit came from your mother's side on 7 generations back. It's amazing. And so when you tap into the source of that belief system, that also has the possibility of shifting it. And then finally, in the longer version, once we have this beautiful heart consciousness statement, and we know where it came from, where we know the negative reaction came from, we ask one final question, and that is, what is the mind's resistance to changing? Right? You said, well, I just do this out of habit. And okay, I have this great new way of doing it, but I'm still going to go into the habit. Unless we ask the mind, well, what is it about that you still want to hang on to? And for many people, that is the whole game changer right there, because it gets right down to the core of, why do I hold on to this when it's obviously not working for me? What is our resistance to change? Well, it goes back to our conditioned belief about something. And then when the mind is confronted with the heart's new approach, the mind goes into the resistance because the mind is afraid of change. It all comes down to fear. When the statement from the heart is telling us consciously what it is that the mind fears, then the mind can listen to it. And sometimes the mind is just outright embarrassed. Oh, okay, yeah, that is kind of silly. I don't really need to be afraid of that. In fact, I can actually see myself getting over that. Well, one of the popular ones that come up is that if I change, others won't love me anymore. Because we have a group of friends, or we have brothers and sisters that see us a certain way, and suddenly if we have money issues, or we have issues in our career, and what we really want is to flourish in our career, but suddenly we feel like, well, then my brothers and my friends won't be able to relate to me the way they are used to, and so I'll lose all my friends. And we're also taught in our society that there's something wrong with us if we fail. That we have to be achieving certain things. We can't just be who we are. We can't just be a loving, compassionate heart, and that's it. And so we want to know, what are those nuances? What are those beliefs? And most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, when the mind is confronted with it, the mind says, yes, you're right. I don't need to hold on to that anymore. The 10% where it's obvious that the client, they go into this cold stare and they start to have this sweat, then what I have learned over the years is that take that fearful statement and do a session just around that. And then you can get into the deeper nuances of what's behind that. And that's amazing, because now you're getting a couple floors below what, that subconscious pattern that you started with. Now we're starting to go really, really deep into it.